And welcome back. Presidential hopeful Rudy Giuliani scores a big endorsement by prominent Christian leader and a televangelist. His name is Pat Robertson. But could the indictment of his former police commissioner, Bernard Kerik, on criminal tax evasion and corruption charges cost the GOP candidate in the end? Megan Vega now with details.
We made a mistake in not clearing him effectively enough. I take the responsibility for that.
Presidential candidate Rudy Giuliani is apologizing, but Bernard Kerik, the city's top former cop and Giuliani's one-time partner, is staying silent. Former Bergen County assistant prosecutor and current lawyer Joshua Cohen says the allegations of tax evasion, conspiracy, and receiving a gift of $165,000 in renovations to an apartment from a mob-linked construction firm far outweigh the good the former New York police commissioner may have ever done for the city.
He was a public official, and public officials are held to a higher standard, and under federal law, as a matter of fact, public corruption is something that's treated very harshly.
Kerik's notoriety is national. In 2004, he pulled his application to become Homeland Security Director.
And the reality that you make some mistakes and you make some correct decisions, I think the overwhelming record is a record of great success.
Former Mayor Giuliani recommended Kerik. The indictment questions the presidential candidate's judgment. Political analyst Rick Thigpen says Giuliani must now be straightforward with voters in order to keep their trust.
Well, he's trying to make a virtue out of necessity. The necessity is to deal with a very difficult problem. The virtue is to be straightforward, honest, and to impress people with how he tackles adversity head-on and doesn't shy away from it or give half answers.
Joining me once again, Democratic strategist Leroy Jones, a partner of 1868 Public Affairs, and Republican strategist George Ajjan, founder of Ajjan Associates. If you're going to lie on your job application, you probably want to make sure it's not the White House job application, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
So how sticky is this issue going to be for Rudy Giuliani?
This is going to be an issue that sticks to Rudy Giuliani, from here. Through his, as long as his, primary presidential campaign is, underway.
So he's not going to shake this with the "I made a mistake, let's move on."
I think there's at least two issues for him. Number one is just from a matter of campaigning. Every time now he opens his mouth, he's campaigning around the country. There's some competitive primaries coming up that he needs to do very well in January. Every time he opens his mouth, the question is going to be to answer questions about Bernard Kerik. He can't be talking about his record, his vision, his issues. Secondly, look, all along there was kind of hesitation amongst conservatives that, look, Rudy Giuliani just put Bernard Kerik in there because he was a yes man when he was the mayor of New York. Yes, Rudy did great things in New York City, but that's because he did a bit of a power grab as an executive. And a lot of conservatives feel that that's the last thing we need is someone in the White House to further that trend that's happened over the past 7 years under George W.
So I guess my question is, did this trump the Pat Robertson endorsement this week? I mean, is Rudy kind of now back to square one in terms of his advancement?
I mean, to me, the Pat Robertson endorsement, Rudy Giuliani, is a match made in egomaniacal heaven. Pat Robertson's credentials in the evangelical...
Let me read. You are a Republican strategist, are you not?
Yeah, I sure am.
I don't think I have a thing to say now. I mean, George made my case for me.
This is a primary. This is a primary, and Rudy Giuliani has a lot of support in the state of New Jersey, but there's also a lot of Republicans in this state and around the country that are very hesitant about his candidacy.
Sure. Harry, I think I think this does kind of cut into that endorsement, which I think was huge for Rudy Giuliani, considering Rudy Giuliani's position on abortion, position on things like stem cell, and just some other ethical issues that perhaps cut the wrong way with the Christian coalition.
There's an... I'm sorry. Go ahead. Make your point.
But the other thing that is clear with this endorsement is that the evangelical vote is splintered amongst, their constituency. Robertson is obviously with Giuliani. Gary Bauer, I believe, is with, Fred Thompson. The moral majority is with Mitt Romney, and the Baptist leader, Rick Scarborough, is with Mike Huckabee. So what you have is a community of, Christian leaders and evangelical voters, that are all over the place, and that's not going to play well for any Republican candidate.
It's interesting. I was going to bring up about the timing of this whole thing with Kerik, because he's going to be back in court, I guess, in January, which couldn't be worse in terms of timing, right before, Super Tuesday. So there's going to be a lot of buzz around the time that is going to be a very, very crucial time for not only Rudy Giuliani, but all candidates.
Right.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, look, the early primaries in January, this is a season unlike we've ever seen before, because we're having primaries. I think there's 20 primaries on February 5th.
Super duper Tuesday.
Yeah, it's really, everything is really moved up, and by the springtime we're essentially going to going to know who the nominees are unless something really dramatic happens.
We'll have some idea.
If things go badly for any so-called front runner in the first couple primaries in January, things can change very rapidly because, look, we're coming into the holidays now. A lot of the mainstream voters, I mean, look, we're all insiders here, but a lot of the mainstream voters are not switched on yet. They're going to switch on after Christmas. And if things go badly for one of the who we all see as front runners now in November, if things go badly for those individuals in January, they can plummet very, very quickly.
Yeah, I think Iowa's going to be a bellwether, as it usually is, and whoever comes out of Iowa, emerging as a victor is going to get a tremendous vote and a tremendous bump, in the next coming elections, and that's going to loom large, and it could perhaps change the landscape. You look across the national polls. Rudy and Hillary are leading the pack, but when you kind of like zero in on Iowa right now, it's very, very close amongst all Tier 1 candidates.
Yeah. Well, as far as national polls go, I don't put a lot of faith in national polls.
Both agree with that.
Because, I mean, look, let's look at the other big piece of news in the presidential this week, which is Ron Paul, who everyone he's starting to gain some traction now in the mainstream media. Everyone kind of wrote off as an unimportant candidate. Raised $4.3 million online in one day. And you drive around the highways of the state and you see Ron Paul signs. You see his supporters. There's going to be a big rally in Philadelphia tomorrow. Those people that are contributing $100 online to Ron Paul are not being captured in the national polls.
So you never know. Okay, we're going to have to wait and see. We'll have to have you back once again to talk about this more and more and more. Thank you, gentlemen, both.
Be glad to.
Very much.
All right, Harry.
If you have any ideas about the topics that you'd like to see discussed, please log on to my9ny.com. Click on Public Affairs. We would love to hear from you. That's it for today's show. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week.